yet another monthly webinar here on BatchTV. For the people that don't know, my name is Kyle Redmond, and today we have the pleasure of interviewing the one and only David Dodge. I want to tell you a little bit about our guest, Mr. David Dodge. So David is from St. Louis, Missouri, and he's a real estate investor, mentor, coach, and he has over 19 years of experience. He started investing in real estate when he was in college at the age of 20 years old while attending the University of Missouri, Columbia. So while David was going to college, he focused on wholesaling real estate and mastered the art of acquiring properties, all while using other people's money. Sounds familiar, right? So fast forward 19 years, okay, David has sold over 750 houses, and he averages 5 to 10 wholesales per month. Okay. He also loves fix and flipping properties, as well as adding properties to his rental portfolio. He currently has over 90 plus rentals with a goal of taking his portfolio to over 200 properties in the next 24 months. David is also a co-author of 3 books, not 2, 3. He has a very successful podcast and has taught thousands of students how to master what he's going to teach you today, which is the BRRRR method. So with further ado, I give to you the one and only David Dodge. What's up, David Dodge?
Hey, brother. How you doing, man? I'm excited to be here today.
I know, right? It's been a minute. So I think everybody really wants to get a little glimpse of who you are, right? And I'm sure everybody is dying to know, how and why did you get started in real estate investing?
Yeah, I got started in real estate investing because I had a professor in college who would come to class and he would bring his paycheck and we would mail it to a charity every month. And he didn't need it. And he was like, I don't need this income from being a professor because I own real estate and I have a ton of passive income. I was like, 18, 19 years old, and I was just intrigued. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. That's so cool that this guy can just donate money and, live an awesome life and be a teacher or professor. Basically, I wanted to do that. And I've been basically doing that ever since. So it's really just came down to a professor in college that intrigued me and sparked a fire under me to, basically follow in his footsteps.
So at what point in your career did you make the leap of faith to multifamily, and what really drove that decision?
I love it, man. That's such a great question. I also thought in the beginning that multifamily wasn't easy, but after doing, lots of multifamily deals at this point, I've learned that multifamily is not any harder than single family. In fact, I believe that it has less risk than single family. So I had the mindset that it was, not easy, but I'm under the impression now that, I love multifamily. I want to continue doing multifamily deals.
The current marketing conditions for anyone that's listening, that might think that something's on the horizon, what is your thoughts on the overall market right now?
It's harder to find a deal right now than it's been over the last several years. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, people aren't wanting to necessarily go move and or get a new loan because they may be locked in at, a 3 or 4% rate, whereas a new loan is going to be, 7 to 8%, depending on if it's a primary residence or an investor type of a deal. But, that doesn't mean that deals aren't out there. There's always going to be people that are going to be dealing with problems in their life, death, divorce, disease, just to name a few. These aren't problems that, anybody is going to essentially wish on anybody else. I know I don't ever want to hear of somebody having turmoil or distress in their life, but I can't prevent people from dying. I wish I could. I can't prevent people from getting in a divorce. I can't prevent people from having to relocate or, whatever it may be. So there's always going to be a need for us real estate investors to come in and help people solve problems and get good deals on real estate. Is it a little bit more difficult today than it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago? Well, yeah, arguably, sure, but everything is cyclical. So at some point, it's going to change and it's going to become easier. So if you learn how to do this business right now, whenever it does change, you are going to basically have a rocket pack to be able to project you into the stratosphere to be able to start doing tons of deals. Yes. So I always encourage people, don't wait to get into real estate. Start buying real estate and wait, right? That's the saying. That's the goal. That's where you can create wealth.
I love it. Yeah. And I mean, that just goes to prove you've amassed nearly over 100 rental properties in your portfolio. And there's one thing that a lot of people, and you just said this, the landlord side of things. So what is the most important thing for investors to consider really before becoming a landlord? in this industry.
I love it, man. I mean, it all starts with knowing how to buy deals, right? One of my favorite sayings is you make your money when you buy, you get paid when you sell. It doesn't matter if you want to wholesale or fix and flip or, be a landlord or use the BRRRR method or buy property subject to or use creative financing. It doesn't matter, guys. You got to learn how to buy at a discount. I love the creative financing approach. I don't do a massive amount of it, but I definitely have done, a couple dozen deals with subject to and creative financing, but I'm still trying to buy properties at discounts, even if I'm using creative financing approach. I would caution anybody out there to go buy a property subject to at full retail, because if you get into a problem or, get into a pickle and you need to get out of that deal, it's going to cost you 8 or 9 or 10% to sell it. So I'm always trying to buy deals at 20 to 30% minimum discounts. At the end of the day, if you average all the deals I've done, which is at this point over 1,000 deals, the average amount that I'm buying a property for compared to what maybe Zillow says it's worth is typically between 50 and 65%, right? So I'm buying deep discounts. And again, it doesn't really matter what your exit strategy is. To answer your question, you make your money when you buy, you get paid when you sell. If you're not making your money when you buy, you're not getting paid when you sell, period.
David said, quote unquote, 90% of people will give up after they failed 2 or 3 times. But take a look at any billionaire. They've failed more than most. Nobody likes to fail. Nobody wants to fail 3 times in a row. But if you stop, you quit. Not only have you failed, but you've also wasted all that time, right? So you've got to keep going. And I love this quote because if you keep at it and you have a community plus a good coach behind you, your chances of winning are far greater because you're going to get basically picked up every single time you fail, right? And that's key, I think, just within our community as well as with his community. And this is one of the main reasons why I invited David today, because not only does he have one of the best communities in the industry, he also is by far one of the best coaches in the industry. So with that being said, David, the floor is yours.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about unlocking passive income. We're going to talk about how to identify a potential cash flowing property. We're going to talk about how to get started with creative finance. We're going to talk about how to implement the BRRRR method. And we're going to talk about how to scale up to multifamily properties. So first and foremost, though, I want to talk about why rentals, right? Well, I love rentals because the rentals kick off cash flow, which is passive income. And the greatest part about passive income, folks, is it's taxed lower than your earned income. It's not fair. All right. I'm not here to talk to you guys about fair. All right. If you go and you work at a job, you're going to be taxed at a much higher tax bracket than if you earn income through real estate. It's not fair, but it's the law. It's the way it works. So why not take advantage of the way that it works, right? So cash flow is one of my favorite reasons that I love rentals. Number 2, it's good debt, meaning that somebody else is going to pay this debt off for you. All right. Number 3, you can use leverage, right? We can use other people's money, but it's not just about money when it comes to rentals. I can leverage basically somebody, something at every step in the process. I can leverage virtual assistants to help me with my marketing. I can leverage employees or partners to help me with my acquisitions. All right. So leverage is not just other people's money. I literally love leverage. It's probably my favorite word because you can use leverage everywhere, all the time, in every aspect of the business. Next, you have appreciation. From 1968 to 2004, just as an example, it's a 36-year period. We saw a 6.5% year-over-year appreciation on average every year for 36 years. Next, you have tax benefits. I absolutely hate paying taxes. Okay. But here's the little secret that most people don't want to talk about. The biggest expense in your life is taxes. Like it or not, you pay over 50% of all the income that you ever make in your life in the form of taxes. You have income tax, not only on a federal level, but a state level. All right. You have sales tax. So not only are you taxed when you earn money, but you are taxed when you spend money. You are taxed to own things like real estate and RVs and boats and planes, right? And then additionally, when you die, you often have to pay taxes, or the heirs in your family have to pay taxes. So taxes suck. They're everywhere. You cannot avoid them. And it's the biggest expense in your life. But by owning real estate, you can actually offset the income tax, which is an amazing, amazing advantage. And then last but not least is wealth creation. Here's a little pro tip that I doubt most people know, but we aren't taxed when we create wealth. We are only taxed when we create income. So if you can change your mindset to not necessarily wanting to double or triple the amount of money that you're making year over year, but instead double, triple, quadruple the amount of wealth that you are creating, you can snowball it. Because if I can go out and I can create another $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 worth of wealth, I might not have to pay $1 of taxes on that wealth that's being created. You're only paying taxes whenever you create an income, right? An actual income incident. So that's why I love rentals, guys. It's in every one of these reasons, and it is basically a guaranteed way to create wealth if you aren't going to just give it a day or a week or a month, right? This is a long-term game. I want to highlight that. So let's jump into the BRRRR method. So what is it, guys? What is the BRRRR method? How do we implement it? Well, the BRRRR method, in my opinion, simply put here, is it's just a method for acquiring lots of cash flowing assets with little to none of your own money fast. Okay. I personally try to do it as much as possible with none of my own money. But even if I have to put a little in, $1,000, $2,000, after 4 or 5 months, or even in some cases 1 or 2, depending on the cash flow, I have all my money back and I have no money in it. All right. So I want to make that very clear. Little to no money. But if you include time as part of the equation, as a variable, you can earn that money back with cash flow and have none of your own money in it. So what is it, right? What is the BRRRR method? Why would you want to use the BRRRR method? Well, we talked about a couple of these reasons earlier, right? But let's touch on them again. Number one, you're going to create passive income. Number two, you can quit your job or replace the income that your job creates by owning assets. This is the rich dad philosophy. It's going to create freedom in your life, tax advantages, wealth creation. Banks love to lend on real estate. That's where we're talking about the leverage aspect of it. And my personal favorite, it is super, super easy. Okay. This is not a difficult process. So what is it, guys? It's an acronym. It's simple. So let's break this down in a little bit more detail here real quick. Whenever we're buying properties, we have to buy these properties at a discount. Remember earlier I said you make your money when you buy, you get paid when you sell. Well, the bigger discount that you are able to buy the property at, the better the deal's going to be. The easier it is going to be to do this with little or ideally no money out of pocket or none of your own money. Okay. Step two, we're going to rehab this property. And that just means that we're going to update it, right? Some properties may need a lot of renovations or rehabs or updates. Others might just need paint and carpet. We do both. But typically speaking, we are going to need to rehab the property. Now, somebody's probably thinking, can I do the BRRRR method without rehabbing or renovating the property? And the answer is yes. You can buy a property, not rehab it, assuming it doesn't need any, rent it out, refinance it, and repeat this process. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult typically. Next, we're going to rent it out. All right. And the beautiful thing about the rehab is that we're going to be able to rent it out at the top of the market. And we're oftentimes what's happening is we're able to set a new record in the market or create a rental property that is going to rent at the top of the market because we've just updated it. We've cleaned it. It's got a new kitchen and a new HVAC and new windows, and it looks good. So people are going to love the property because of those renovations. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to refinance the property. And the reason I like to refinance the property is because I'm typically buying these properties with other people's money. And I want to be able to pay these people back in a timely manner with interest. And by refinancing the property, we're doing a couple things. Number one, we're paying them back with interest. So they want to keep lending money to us, regardless if it's private or hard money. But number two, whenever we go to a bank and we ask a bank to, help us refinance a property, they don't care what we bought the property for anymore. All right. A lot of people, they don't realize this. When you go to a bank to buy a property, they are going to want you to have 20% down, meaning that they're going to give you an 80% loan. But that 20% down needs to be in the form of cash. Well, when you refinance a property, they're also going to want to see 20%, but it doesn't need to be cash. It can be equity. All right. It's very, very difficult for a bank to offer you the ability to buy a property on the front end with equity. They want to see skin in the game. Well, when you're refinancing it, it doesn't work that way. Banks are essentially not as worried about the risk on a refinance because they're piggybacking off of the first lender who also took risk, and they're essentially using their risk to piggyback to offer the property to you at an 80% leverage. Well, you can use the equity in the deal on the refinance. You typically can't do that on a purchase. That's why we like to buy with other people's money and then refinance, because of the way the banks operate with leverage. And then next, we're going to repeat this process. And if you do this 10 to 20 times, typically speaking, it's going to allow you to become free, not only financially free, but just free in general, free of having the 9-to-5 job, and, free to go do what you want, when you want, with whom you want. All right, let's talk about how to get started in creative finance. Number one, ask the seller if they're going to be open to terms. If you don't ask, the answer is going to be no, right? So are they open to terms? You can often pay them more money with terms, okay? Number two, is their motivation high? And if it is, they are going to be much more likely to work with you to get rid of the problem in their life, which is often a property. Next, can you help them save their credit, prevent a foreclosure, or even a bankruptcy by utilizing creative or seller financing techniques? And the answer is yes, absolutely. I love helping people prevent foreclosures or bankruptcies and or save their credit from financial disaster whenever they're not able to make their mortgage payments. And we can utilize these techniques. And another big strategy that, is often overlooked, at least from my perspective, is sometimes people don't want the big tax obligation of selling a property. Well, if you buy a property with terms and you buy it from them over 5, 10, 15, maybe even 30 or 40 years, you are breaking down that tax obligation over that term. So oftentimes it will make them more comfortable selling you that property because of the tax obligation. Nobody likes paying taxes. Okay, next, how do you scale up to multifamily? Well, first and foremost, you got to start looking at multifamily deals. I know that seems kind of dumb and straightforward, but I get asked this question a lot. Dave, I want to start doing multifamily. And it's like, great, how many multifamily properties have you looked at? Have you walked? Have you made offers on? And the answer is typically none. You got to go out and start looking at these other types of properties. It is not that much different. You got to start making offers, okay? You need to secure your funding or your financing, and creative financing may be a good solution for you. And or ask the seller for terms, aka creative and seller financing, okay? It is really not that much different at all than a single family. It's even easier, in my opinion, with less risk to scale up to multifamily and use multifamily for a number of reasons. Banks love lending on multifamily. Sellers know that they often need to provide seller carrybacks, creative financing, seller financing, subject tos in order to sell their properties, especially at a rate that's going to make them a good amount of money, right? A fair rate. And then additionally, why would it be less risky? Well, from my perspective, it's going to be less risky because if a single family goes vacant, you have zero income. If you have a 24 unit or a 40 unit apartment complex, and I own both, and one unit goes vacant, so what? I have 39 other units in that building that are going to create income for me. So you can spread your risk. Okay. So scaling up to multifamily is not rocket science. Okay. Just start looking at them, start walking them, start going out and talking to the sellers that own these types of properties, and then start making offers, guys. It doesn't have to be complicated. Next, I want to talk about a freedom number. Now, this slide's a couple years old, but it doesn't matter because it is very, very, very relevant to being able to create financial freedom and passive income, right? So it doesn't matter, fill in the blanks with what your monthly expenses are. Maybe you have childcare, maybe you have 3 houses, right? Maybe you have a boat and an airplane. Your expenses may be different, but at the end of the day, you can total up the amount of money that you are going to need at the end of the month to replace the job that you currently have or to maintain the current lifestyle that you already have. And then all you got to do to figure out what your freedom number is divide that by the amount of cash flow that each asset that you're going to buy can create. So most of my single family homes create about $300 a month in cash flow. So what that means is that I need 17.66 assets to be able to cover my monthly nut. Okay. Well, if I'm doing maybe some Airbnbs or some midterm rentals that can bring in $750 a month, I only need 7 of them. So you don't need 50 or 80 or 100 or 300 properties or assets to go about creating financial freedom, right? You might only need 4 or 7 or 18, depending on the type of property and the amount of cash flow that it generates. And of course, it's going to vary depending on your monthly cost of living. All right. I appreciate everybody coming here today, and I appreciate you guys having me. Again, at this point, I just love helping people, man. I love giving back, mentoring, coaching, all the above.
Leverage, 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 leverage right there. That's the main thing I got out of it. And, you know, one thing I really love about you the most, David, is how you're just master at simplifying the process. So I want to respect your time. So I know you said you got 20 minutes. So
Yeah.
if you guys do have questions, I know there are some questions here in the Q&A.
Yeah, let me pull that up and we can run through those really quick here. Miss Landry, hello. I see she had a question in here. She says, do you do STR, short-term rental as well? Those tend to rent for higher numbers. Yes, of course. I have some short-term rentals. I have some mid-term rentals. And of course, there is pros and cons to single family, midterm, short-term, multi-family. But yes, I have a portfolio of single family, midterm, short-term, and multifamily. And here's what I would say about that, guys. Not every strategy is going to be for everyone, right? Some people hate long-term rentals and they only want to do shorter midterm. Some people only want to do multifamily, and that's fine. So figure out what your goals are and then figure out the strategy that's going to align the best with that goal. All right. Jeremiah says, how do you find third-party managers for a property in a given market if you are not living in the market? That's a great question, but guys, don't overcomplicate it, right? You can join RIAs virtually. You can go into Google and type in, property management firms and find property management firms that have good ratings and reviews. You can join local Facebook groups in the market that you want to invest in. Find other investors like Kyle or myself that owns rentals and ask us who we use. And we're going to happily share that contact with you. So I think that is, most easily answered by, you got to ask. If you don't ask, the answer is no, or there is no answer, right? So local RIAs, local Facebook groups, networking with other investors is typically the easiest way. All right. Anonymous attendee says, how do you leverage when finding discounted deals? Batch Leads is my #1 favorite tool to leverage finding discounted properties, guys. It's all about getting lists of sellers that have a presumed level of motivation, right? So you can't go pull a list where everybody's going to be motivated. Even if you go pull a list of probates or divorces, for example, not everybody's going to be motivated, but we can find lists of sellers that are going to have a presumed level of motivation. So some of my favorite lists that I like to market to will be my vacants, my absentees, my probates, my pre-foreclosures. Now, no matter what list I'm pulling, I always want to do a couple things. And this is a filter option over at Batch, right? I want to filter out or off on-market properties. I want to filter out properties that have less than 30 or even 40% equity, because if they can't sell at a discount, then it's probably a waste of time to be marketing to them, right? And then I also like to filter out people that have owned the property for less than a year in most cases. There are some cases like inherited where that would be a bad idea, right? But in most cases for vacants and absentees, you want them to have owned it for a minimum of a year, because if they have just bought the property, their presumed level of motivation is going to be very, very, very low. All right, anonymous attendee, do you hire an agent when making offers, or you reach out to the listing agents directly? That is an amazing question. On average, my business is buying about somewhere between 70 and 100 properties a year. Okay. And regardless of what that number is, the percentages of properties that we are buying on the market is about 3%. Of those properties that make up the 3% that are on the market, we're not typically finding and calling the seller or the agent and making an offer. It's usually the agent or the owner of the property finds us and says, it's been listed, I can't sell it, I'm getting motivated, I'm getting nowhere with this agent or with this on-market strategy. Make me an offer, any offer. I don't typically want to market to on-market properties. I don't typically want to waste time dealing with real estate agents, because they've already convinced their client, the seller, that the property's worth more than it really is. And like I said a few minutes ago, they're also going to typically be asking for proof of funds and, all these different details. And if you're wholesaling, that can be very, very, very difficult. So 97% of all the deals I buy on an annual basis, as well as in my entire life, have been off market. I would encourage every one of you to quit wasting time with on-market properties. Now, there's a caveat. Can you get pocket listings that maybe not have gone live yet, or, that the agent knows that they're motivated? Yeah, absolutely. But that's really more of a networking approach. That's really more of a prospecting to agents to bring you deals before they hit the market. When they're on the market and they're live, it's going to be very difficult from my experience. Awesome questions here today, guys.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. So once again, how do people get in touch with you? What's the best way for people to find you?
I'm pouring my heart and soul into real estate school right now. I got 1,000 members over there. So quite honestly, I would say real estate school will be the best place to connect with me. It's super affordable. I mean, basically for the cost of dinner once a month, you can have access to me, courses, weekly group coaching calls, as well as a community to collaborate and ask questions and joint venture with other investors.
Beautiful. Well, if you were to leave one piece of advice behind for all the entrepreneurs out there, what words of advice would you leave?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of things that come to mind, but I would say this, guys, I'm not a great salesperson. And, I'm doing multiple deals a month. I've done over 1,000 deals, and one of the best things that I have found, not only for myself personally, but for my students, is just focus on making a friend, right? People want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. It's called building rapport, right? Which basically, again, simplified, it just means making friends with people. When I'm out on an appointment with the seller, I'm not like trying to pace them, like in terms of, NLP type stuff. And, I'm not trying to like use any sort of crazy tactic, try to get them to sign my contracts. If they don't want to work with me, I don't want to force them to. But if you can just make a friend and be genuine, people are gonna want to work with you, simply put. So the advice that I would give everybody here is focus your efforts on just talking to people and making friends, and you're gonna fall into deals. But if your goal is to try to sell somebody, they're gonna sniff that out and they're gonna say, yeah, maybe not today. I want to get a second opinion. I want to hear somebody else's quote. But if your goal is to genuinely provide value and to help them, they're not going to seek these other things, and they're going to want to work with you. So simply put, focus on making a friend, and it's going to get you so much farther, not just in business, but in life, than any other thing that I'm aware of. Just be kind and make friends.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, David, once again for your time. I know you're a busy man. Thank you so much for giving back to the community. And
Thanks
for
for having
everybody
me.
out there, I hope you all been taking notes, but you got to take action, right?
Right.
That's one thing that David said today. So bless you all. Thank you for being here. And until next time, like Jesse Burrell, our CEO, says, let's get it.